afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure today to introduce Stephanie Ward. Stephanie is the community manager at Scopism, and today Stephanie is going to talk to us about her experiences building a community in the SIAM world. She'll also be touching on AI in terms of how that can be used in context to help in service integration and management. Also, just to add that on the slide that follows this one, there is a QR code that if you have a question or something you'd like to say for later, you can scan that and ask your question. And there's some other elements on there. Any burning questions you've got from any of the speakers, you can pop on there and we can look at those later on in the keynotes. So but that could be useful for you if you need them. But Stephanie, over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I have not got any funky slides about AI, but I will touch on it. And I guess mainly to talk a little bit about SIAM, service integration and management, how that's evolved and what we've seen in our global SIAM surveys that have been running. Again, I will touch on a little case study that's not my own, but I find it interesting, and the Scopism SIAM community, which if there's anything you do today, if you scan that code, which will come up again at the end, but that takes you to the community where you can kind of carry on these conversations about SIAM and AI. And yeah, if you're in that world, there's a lot of great people and knowledge and resources in there, which I'll come on to. A little bit about me. I am brand new this year to the industry. I started my career in the Middle East in security. It was a lot of fun. I was about 18 in a dry state and you couldn't drink, so it wasn't the best. But I moved from there into science, manufacturing and telecommunications, as well as a bit of psychology. But I've worked with business startups, new ventures, through to well-established large organisations, and predominantly Lean Six Sigma, which I guess has a bit of a crossover. And one thing that really brought me to where I am now is the people, and bringing people together to share good practices, knowledge, resources, kind of stop trying to reinvent the wheel and work together, really. So that's where I am, and I now manage the Scopism SIAM community. So SIAM, does everybody here know what SIAM is? Is it brand new to anyone? No, a little bit. So that there is the formal definition from the body of knowledge. So it's a methodology that can be applied in environments that include services sourced from a number of service providers. So a way of applying service management principles in that teams can be internal, external, third party, and it just basically has a different level of focus to traditional multi-source ecosystems. Again, it's all there. I don't need to read it all, and there are SIAM experts in the room that I can point to if you need them. But I think what we see and hear a lot of is, what is it? It's dead. It's just posh supplier management. And within the community, it's a way to educate people if they are brand new to it, or those that kind of think they know what it is but don't really know how to pitch it to the right people. Yeah, it's there's a lot of great resources in there, and it's continuing to evolve, which brings me on to the state of SIAM as we see it today. So the Global SIAM Survey was launched in 2018, so this is its 6th year. It's been sponsored by For Me and Kinetic IT, and we've also had a 5-year review, which we've done a webinar on in the community, which is recorded and available for review and download. It's basically tracking the SIAM trends in organisations that plan to adopt SIAM, have adopted it, or sell SIAM consultancy and solutions, and we typically get about 200 respondents every year. One thing that came up this year was how many of those people are returning. Are you seeing the same trends from people that have started with the SIAM implementation? Oh, thanks. to kind of how long they've been implementing it, and it's been evolving. So somebody asked, do we ask that question? And we don't. For data protection, we haven't kept that information, but we did introduce it this year, whether people have filled that out before. Surprisingly, about 70% were new, which was great because it shows that SIAM is evolving and more and more people are finding the survey, but a portion of them aren't returning. So we want to get more and more people doing it. We work with Exin, our exclusive education partner, to have the translation into things like Japanese. So hopefully next year we can have it in more languages to help spread that more globally for those that don't speak or read and write in English. So looking a little bit at the demographics of who's who in SIAM, we're talking a little bit about this earlier, about the ages that we see. So predominantly between 31 and 60, and over the years that's kind of flip-flop between the two, but they dominate the responses that we see. And last year we had 45 to 60 being the most popular, and this year it's the 31 to 45 age group. But really the community is hoping to drive younger practitioners into these positions, and we work with universities. I was talking to David and Gareth earlier about how can we educate more people, so working earlier on in people's careers to make them aware of these routes and opportunities. So yeah, there's definitely those people in the community, but we want to continue that. Gender, as you can imagine, it's a predominantly male response. Men make up 70% of the responses, and we did start to see more females, but actually that's gone down again this year. So again, the community wants to promote that inclusivity, which in both SIAM and IT, which is what we believe where we believe the disparity stems from. But yeah, salaries. SIAM roles are well compensated, which is good. They earn typically over $80,000 and 20% earn over 100,000. So looking at the generations and the experience, the senior levels of roles, it's kind of unsurprising. We have this year seen, I haven't got it up there. Oh no, I have. Oh no, I haven't. But there are more people earning less. So I think we are starting to see more junior roles in the industry, which is good. So that brings that salary bracket down there. If anyone has any questions throughout, please raise your hand or shout. Organisations, so typically SIAM is adopted in larger organisations, but it is for any type or size. The principles, the practices are all the same, but the roles and resources may just be more or less. So what we see in our results it is typically, and again this year, used in organisations with over 1,001 employees, but it is, as I said, used in others. Sectors, again, can be applied in any industry, but looking at the industry analysis, it is predominantly dominated in IT. So this year, I think we saw 50% of respondents describe their industry as IT, which is an increase as well. And with SIAM comes a whole host of benefits. So there are obviously improved service quality, optimised costs, increased value, improved governance, and these typically year on year are our top responses. There are other benefits that we see, and this is for anyone planning to adopt SIAM. Similarly, in those that have adopted it, better reporting, management information, collaboration between suppliers, supplier performance, and easier to add and remove suppliers. I think service, did you just ask a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, it's interesting, isn't it? When you look at both of those slides, the 2018 numbers, when the awareness of SIAM and the implementation to SIAM were perhaps a little bit less, really seen that growth over the last kind of 4 or 5 years, how those benefits have come about or perceived to have come about so quickly by respondents, particularly around things like collaboration. Who would have thought suppliers talking to each other? How hard can it be? But in 2018, clearly respondents were saying that's quite a hard thing to achieve. As the implementations improve and the numbers increase, quite consistently we get to a relatively high set of numbers, which is a good news story.
Yes. And one of the things that I think a lot of people talk about is cost. And although obviously it is a benefit, but that's seen as less of an outcome. It's just kind of, it's more the byproduct benefit, I suppose, that they see, but it's not one of the top ones. And again, similarly for those that sell SIAM consultancy solutions, similar top responses on there as well. But it's not all benefits. Obviously, with adopting SIAM is a significant organisational transformation. So with it does come challenges. And these are things that I guess that we want people to talk about in the community. What are the challenges you see and how have you overcome it? Things like organisational change management, building a business case. Like with any large project, you're going to experience that, and behaviours. You know, I talk about that. I presented at ITSMF at the end of this year. Behaviours is huge across anything. You know, I'm working in lean, you can teach people tools and management, you know, methodologies, but if you haven't got the behaviours embedded, it's really hard to make that change, and to make people see the benefits. One thing that isn't on there is that did come up above establishing the service integrator was negotiating and renegotiating contracts and tooling, which again comes across those that have adopted SIAM. So tooling was in at 57%, second on the biggest challenges, and negotiating contracts was fourth. And again, tooling and automation is actually in the top 3 this year, and is consistently in the top challenges that we'll see. So that segues probably nicely into hopefully stuff that Steve might talk about next. But SIAM and tooling underpins the SIAM model. So the survey does ask, which I'm not going to talk about too much today, but is your existing ITSM tool fit for purpose? Are you planning to change that? And you know, over the 6 years, it's consistently been an issue, and a lot don't look to replace or make any adjustments to that. Another thing, I guess, that we see is rolling SIAM out into different parts of the organisation. It's consideration of how those tool sets are used in things like HR and finance, and what we can do to kind of accommodate that. But as I said, that's kind of where I'm going to stop on the survey, but there's so much on that. We're also talking about a Service North. We've got a panel of Simon Dawes, Michelle Major-Goldsmith and Shiva Chadha, I think. But what I will come on to is SIAM and AI. And again, sorry, no funky slides, but like with a lot of things that people have talked about today, AI, it can enhance a lot of the things that we do. So SIAM being one of them, it provides advanced capabilities for automation, data analysis, decision making across the entire service ecosystem. But I guess like with anything, it's essential to carefully plan and implement those AI solutions, and considering specific needs and complexities across the SIAM framework and ecosystem. So how can it enhance SIAM? These are kind of top 10 reasons. Obviously, we talked about automation of service coordination, so it can coordinate the services across multiple service providers and internal teams, automatically trigger actions, update statuses, allocate resources, incident management, you know, things like, sorry, I've got additional notes here because there's just so much to kind of say on it, but you know, assigning things to appropriate teams and automating a lot of the work that I guess people have talked about today that we're capable of doing, but by getting that automated and AI incorporated into that, it saves us time to do the stuff that we either enjoy doing or that is far more value adding. The people that I'll point to, I guess, about the stuff that on SIAM and AI is digital clarity. So the reason that I've included them here is we were having a conversation the other day about, you know, what do you see in the real world? Have you got any case studies that you've been working on? And I know a lot of the real world experiences that we talk about. So I chose from what we were talking about in our conversation is the NHS, because it's something that I've experienced, and I'm sure we've all experienced, whether personally or friends, family, that the issues that we're facing and how the work that they're doing, digital clarity with NHS, is, you know, we're receiving that benefit, I guess. So increasing patient volumes, rising healthcare costs, shortages of healthcare professionals. So digital clarity basically are just a modern forward-thinking consultancy who are helping organisations like the NHS navigate the digital revolution. And the scenario being, so they are working with them for the use of wearables, remote consultations, information flow, and things like, I don't know if anyone uses the app, so we can have our appointments scheduled. We don't need to ring up anymore. Sometimes the doctors can be a nightmare if you try and ring them. They don't like to talk to you. So the work that they're doing there to incorporate virtual assistants, chatbots, patients can obviously describe their symptoms to have that triaged and addressed, you know, as severely as it needs to be. Clarifying questions, so a lot of the things that we saw in the talk before, making sure that they are urgently addressed. Also looking at things like the prescriptions that we already take, making sure that there's no drug interaction, that, you know, you don't need to rely on a person to think, oh, actually, I need to revert back to, you know, my educational experience. It's all there and it's done for them. Machine learning models for patient records, genetic information. I guess the list is endless of what they're doing. The health monitoring devices, things like blood pressure monitoring, sleep apnea. You know, you don't have to go into a clinic to do that now. That's real-time data that's sent back and analysed and can be addressed a lot quicker. So the results from that, they've managed to reduce the wait times. So we've got quicker access to those that need help. Early disease intervention, we don't need to wait for loads of analytics to be done on our health. The doctors can see more people and see more people urgently as they're needed, and patients have access to their own records, so we can become more engaged with our own health and understand where we're at, have personalised insights and guidance. So I guess a little takeaway, by embracing the technologies that we have, we can move from reactive to proactive and predictive in a way that's never been possible before. And while I'm definitely not the expert in SIAM and AI, these guys are doing a lot of great work, and their contact details are there for anything if you want to contact them directly. They'll also be at Service North happy to talk to anyone about this. And also we have, which I'll come on to in the community, a SIAM Plus series. So if you are familiar with these things, you're an expert in them, you want to talk about them, learn about them, scan that QR code, and that will take you directly to the community where you can get involved in things like that. So this is my bag. This is the stuff I know in a lot more detail. And this is the community, basically. I joined in Q1 of this year, worked a lot with Claire Agutter from Scopism, who I guess is a popular name in this industry, and she did a lot of great work in forming the architect group to develop the bodies of knowledge for SIAM, so the foundation and the professional, which has since been taken in 60 plus countries by tens of thousands of people. I know a lot of people sat here have taken those exams. And I worked with her to understand what she wanted from the community and bringing this together globally. So did a lot of research and analysis, worked with partners to enable free membership for anybody that joins the community. And I worked with great people like Steve Morgan, who sat here and will also be talking today from Syniad IT, and David Barrow to onboard community champions who can talk to people like me who'd been in the industry for 3 weeks versus Claire, who's been in for 3 decades and knows how to work with these people, because that's what we need, you know, people who can gauge what level of intervention you need at your stage in your career. So we also went to regional events, onboarded the partners, and we launched on the 4th of July this year. We also launched the global survey, and we did the 5-year analysis, which we will talk about at Service North next month, in a few weeks. We've also got the SIAM professional training led by Simon Dawson, Michelle Major Goldsmith, and the SIAM Leadership Council, where we can talk about where SIAM's evolving, emergent topics, and make sure that we're addressing these things inside and outside of the community. So the mission that we defined was we want to be able to provide dynamic, data-informed, quality-driven expertise and experiences so members can achieve their goals. And that forms the basis of how the community is built on Connect, Learn, Grow. status out of date because the members are growing rapidly, which is great, but it just means that my slides aren't always updated. We have over 1,000 members now, and it's great because those people are getting involved and connecting with one another. So one section in the community is a place for basically people to introduce themselves. Where do you come from? What are you looking to get from the community? More up from introducing yourself, ask the community. We've had a lot of great questions from people and a lot of great answers at the same time. Champions, as I said, we've got Steve Morgan, Cinead IT, David Barrow from the Soul 7 Studio, and I work a lot with these guys to educate people where they need it, as well as Simon and Michelle, who I've talked about, Shiva, Chetan Vikas, Marcus Mueller, who all bring an individual, unique personality to that, and it's a place for people to reach out to and connect, you know, and know that they're going to get a trusted and reliable answer, basically. We also run events online and offline, so there's webinars, there's a SIAM Plus series that I talked about, Ask the Experts, so we have a panel discussion where people can kind of dig deep into, okay, I've got this issue, what do I need to do? And if they can't help, they can point you in the direction of people that can. Service North, so that's the flagship event that we run, SIAM focused in the UK. We've also got Japan at the end of November, which is virtual and free to attend. I don't speak Japanese, but if you do, then you can attend. Service North Nordics in February, so in Helsinki, they'll be hosting a face-to-face event there as well, amongst many others. So if people are in certain parts of the world and want an event to address the SIAM needs there, we can look at that as well. There's the Learn section, so we've got free content, free downloads, case studies, the bodies of knowledge are there, as well as the recorded events for the Service North that we had to go virtual during COVID. And I guess coming back to that actually is one thing that, again, David and I were talking about before. We've got the bodies of knowledge, which are great, they support the exams, and that will never change, but there's so much that's going on all the time around it that by the time we get to print or we get it approved, we're not addressing these issues quick enough. So as well as that stable piece of content, we've got the ongoing stuff as well to support it. And grow, so both geographically, and if people have got, you know, special interest groups or things like Agile and DevOps that comes up a lot in the surveys, cyber and security, other emerging topics that we need to address there, we can focus on that. But we are aware that there were previous existing communities in the DACH region, for example, which we've reignited. We've got that virtual at the moment, and that will hopefully go to face-to-face as well as India, which is obviously a large region to address. Some of the analytics that we've looked at, so we've got, to enable that dynamic and data-informed growth, we look at active posts. So measuring SIAM service provider, thanks Steve, that was one of his questions in the community that we are looking at addressing, and we look at things like the popular areas, key focus areas like that, and we build a plan to address the needs requirements of our members. So they were the top 3 things that came from the community. We looked at polls, we had webinars, and we're making sure that we are addressing these in the right way. So Steve's going to be talking about that at Service North, I believe, yes, as well as doing panel discussions to make sure that we're addressing the root cause, as well as working with our partners who also run LinkedIn Live sessions. There's a few faces you might recognise there, but when I say about people being involved, you know, we've got Steve, for example, that we had another question come up about pitching SIAM, and, you know, there is the challenge of being able to gauge and use the right content and how to leverage that for the stakeholders involved. And we've got a working group formed from the initial question that Steve's leading on, pulling together that content. And
yeah, the lady in the middle on that slide.
That's, yeah.
Finland, is that right?
Yeah.
And she said, I understand SIAM, I understand what it's all about. My organisation really needs it, but I've no idea how to pitch it to my leadership. And that started as a post on the forum in this community. And we said, well, let's take that as a group and we'll produce some generic pitch material that takes that academic knowledge around SIAM and turns it into something you can present to management who may not have heard of it before, that leads on the benefits and the approach and so on. And that's what we're in the process of producing now. So the community is kind of a really powerful engine to kind of make that happen, because as you gather by now, I'm active in it and very vocal. But there's a lot of clever people around as well. And when you kind of meld all that knowledge together, it's really useful. It kind of ignites it. So we've actually covered quite a lot of ground with that after 2 meetings.
Yeah,
Really
definitely. And as well as our partners, if you're interested in getting involved on an individual basis or your organisation, obviously, as I mentioned, we are supported by HCL, Emphasis and Exim. And this is just a high level plan for next year. So learning and building on what we did this year, making sure that we're looking at those long-term projects that we want to address, things like tool and assessment, certification, accelerator packs, and as well as our regular surveys and Service North. And for those of you that would like to attend the event, we are offering a 50% discount if you use that code. As I said, the people that I've talked about today will be there. We also have the SIAM professional training on the following days as well, and that's in Manchester in November. And that's it. But if you'd like to join the community, you can join that QR code or follow the website.